I think it's extremely positive that we are seeing that there's a growing agreement that the EU can play a bigger role here. I think it's a consequence of the fact that many citizens feel that really this problem is so big now that we need to help each other across member states, across the union, to solve these problems. And the fact that the heads of state are now going to discuss this is extremely positive. And I, of course, as responsible commissioner, look forward to getting this steer from our leaders, because it really is necessary that we step up our efforts and that we acknowledge that this is a common European problem. There's no doubt that Spain is a country where many cities experience this problem. I've also met with mayors from different cities, and they have explained to me the challenges that they face. So yes, Spain is indeed one of the member states that we are thinking about when we're saying that we do have a serious crisis. But where, of course, it becomes a problem is when these short-term rentals, in fact, crowd out ordinary housing. So ordinary people were living in their homes, but now, because of the short-term rentals, they're no longer able to live there. And we see this especially in some of the very visited cities, touristic cities, so over-tourism would also be a consequence of this. So yes, we will be putting forward proposals from the European Union on how to deal with this problem. President von der Leyen has also stated that in her State of the Union recently, and that is, of course, a sign that we take this very seriously. We're not going to be proposing legislation that interferes with the right of the member states to set up measures with regards to rent, for instance. This is a national competency, and it will remain so. But what we will be doing is that we will be looking at what are the things that we can do from a European level as to make sure that the stock of housing increases, so that there's more houses. That is the only thing that we know for sure will bring down the prices. Well, I've heard many different numbers of how much is necessary. One thing I can say is that the numbers are huge. The numbers are very, very big, and whether it's you listen to one or another source, maybe that it's not so important exactly what the numbers are, because what we know for a fact is that we're very far from where we need to be. So let's push as much as we can to see how we can best make these investments happen. I think it's up to the cities to do what they want, and I think certainly we need to understand just how serious a problem it is for big cities. In Spain, you have a handful, at least, if not more, that has this problem, and I've spoken to mayors and city councils and citizens from so many cities now that express this concern. So I'm very understanding towards the needs that they have to be able to act. Sometimes, even if something is positive, it can have some challenges connected to it, and this is one of those examples, that when you get a lot of new citizens from outside to work in your city, then that can cause pressure on the housing market. So certainly that is also one of the things that we need to take into consideration when we propose new measures. And fact of the matter is that if we don't fundamentally manage to increase the number of houses, then we will not get to the core of the problem, because the problem is that there's there's not a balance between supply and demand. Dealing with short-term rentals is one way of hopefully getting closer to finding that balance. At the other end of this spectrum, we have big investors, private investors that are there to make money. Okay, it's fine to make money in the housing market, but it cannot be at the expense of the public good. So we need to look at whether or not there are ways where we can also solve these problems. So that, for instance, we don't see cities, as is the case now, where a lot of houses are empty. Why? Because they're just being bought and sold not for people to live in them, but for the investors to make money. This is not an easy thing, and I certainly don't have the silver bullet right now on how to solve that problem, but we do need to acknowledge that this is a big part of it, and we do need to really look good and hard at what can be done. One of the things that we will definitely be doing is proposing a reform of the state aid rules, because the state aid rules are too strict. It's necessary to have state aid rules in a common market like the one, internal market like the one we have in the European Union. Otherwise, we risk that state aid in one country will be unfair towards another country. So I think most people will understand why that's fair and why that's good, but it's not a one-size-fits-all type of rule set, in my opinion. I think that there are some things that are so important and that are also so local that it's actually fine that we have exemptions and that we have different rules. And yes, the social housing and affordable housing is certainly one of those areas. So yes, I can promise that we will be putting forward proposals for new rules on these issues.